Good morning, everybody. We've got some excitement going on over here. We got the yard guys across the street getting out of their trucks. So Bella's going to be on high alert because she doesn't like them messing with the neighbor's yard. She doesn't know who they are. Anyway, today we are having a special guest. We're having Walter West from Texas come and join us again. And he's going to be coming on here at about the 10-minute mark. But I wanted to go over some things that are happening here in Arizona. And you'll excuse the way I'm talking. I have a new bridge in, and it's causing me to talk funny till I get used to it. So anyway, 2 days ago, they had a debate with the Maricopa County recorder, the current recorder, Stephen Richer, and then the people who are challenging him. And this was a Republican debate, so of course the Democrat who's running wasn't in it. But after the debate, it was interesting because he came outside of the venue and was asked by a reporter, "Did you vote for Trump in 2020?" And he said yes. And then they said, "Who are you voting for in 2024?" And he said Biden. A Republican Maricopa County recorder who is endorsed by two former Arizona Republican governors, Doug Ducey and Jan Brewer, stated publicly on TV that he's voting for Biden in 2024. So this just kind of tells you the state of affairs that Arizona Republican politics is in. And it's not a pretty picture when you've got these former governors who really have a big presence in politics here in Arizona saying these sort of things and are endorsing these type of candidates. And this is why I was saying the other day when I was talking to Jerome, you can support somebody like Trump and not support everybody that he endorses. Because, when we have boots on the ground like we do here in Arizona, you know more about the candidates than Trump does or the campaign would ever know. They're given recommendations of who to endorse by boots on the ground. And if those people aren't Republicans with good intentions, then they're going to be giving the wrong information to the Trump campaign and Trump himself. So, and Trump hasn't endorsed Stephen Richter by any means, but my point being, if you liked Doug Ducey and you like Jan Brewer and you're like, oh, they're endorsing this guy, Stephen Richer, he's a good guy. He's not a good guy, folks. He handled the election in 2022 terribly. And they put something out on his Instagram the other day with the picture of himself saying, "We clean up the voter rolls daily." They don't. And I have proof of that. I have stacks of ballots I'm still getting from my boys who live out of state and one of their wives. And they have repeatedly called to get their names off the voter rolls. They're voting in different states. And they are still getting mail-in ballots here at my house in Mesa, Arizona. So the voter rolls are not cleaned up daily. I was getting ballots for my deceased son, Brandon Mendoza, for many years after he was killed. So they don't even coordinate with the Office of Vital Statistics here in Phoenix to get people who have died off the voter rolls, which is quite interesting. And the other thing is that, we've got illegals who are registered to vote here in Arizona. And let me see if I can pull up this article because I just sent it to a few people. Let me see. All right. Because this is interesting when you share screen. So several states, including Arizona, allow illegals to vote in the presidential election with no proof of citizenship needed. So it goes on down here that the New York Post article in June reported that welfare offices and other government agencies in 49 states were providing voter registration forms to migrants without requiring proof of citizenship. So this is how illegals are voting in our federal elections. They don't have any rights at all to vote in the U.S. elections. In Arizona and other states, you are not required to prove citizenship to receive a federal only ballot. Will still allow anyone to vote in federal elections, including presidential elections. You must only check a box affirming that you are a citizen and a box affirming that you will be 18 years or older on or before election day. Put a name, and any address to have your ballot mailed to, if you like. The proof of citizenship or last 4 digits of social security number box on the federal registration form, federal voter registration form, which is accepted in all 50 states, is not a required field. So all that you must do is sign and date the form and swear and affirm that you are a U.S. citizen, you meet the eligibility requirements of my state, and subscribe to any oath required. The information I provided is true to the best of my knowledge under the penalty of perjury. If I have provided false information, I may be fined, imprisoned, or if not a U.S. citizen, deported from or refused entry to the United States. How often do you hear any of that happening, folks? So these people are not deterred by these warnings or threats that are on these voter registration things. And of course, they can always lie and say, I didn't fill that out. That's not my signature. That isn't me. And with all of the voter fraud going on across the United States, I would imagine that some judges would probably accept that as a defense argument. So, you know, we're going to be dealing with this. And this is what the Biden administration knows. This is what the Democrats know. And this is why importing so many illegals is important, because they know in 49 of the 50 states that they're going to be able to vote in federal elections and vote for Biden, because all of these people are all about Biden because he's kept the borders open. And, you know, it's a sad day in America when you realize that illegals are voting in our federal elections and helping to choose our president when they don't even have any voting rights to begin with. So anyway, I just wanted to give you that update on the Stephen Richer debate that he had with Justin Heap and Don Hyatt the other night. And dun, 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 we are welcoming Walter West from Texas. How are you?
Hola, hola, ¿cómo está, mujer?
There you are. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Your favorite gringo coming from the other side. Well, coming from the other side of your border over the Texas, New Mexico region.
There you go. There you go. Oh, what is it hot over there? Is it hot like it is here?
Mucho caliente, muy caliente. How do they say it? It's like ghost peppers on your lips.
Oh, geez.
So, yeah, and that's only well, I guess it's noontime here. So wait, yeah, it's noon Texas time right now. I never can remember between New Mexico and Texas, so that the clock tells me noon.
Yes, yeah, and I mean it's been hot here, and the monsoon storms have started up here, so of course the humidity has moved in. But it's so nice in the late afternoon when they start moving in, because, you know, within a matter of an hour, it can cool the temperature down 100 degrees here, and we can be down at 105. So nice and cool here in Arizona, you know, compared to the 112 or something we may have had earlier in the day. So, and I apologize for how I'm talking. I have a new bridge in, and it's making me sound weird when I'm talking. But I hate dental work and having to get used to everything new like this, but It sounds like I have a lisp, but anyway,
Well, you know how it goes. It's just one of those things, right?
just keep talking like that and make me feel better today, Walter. So tonight is the debate. How do you think
Yeah,
it's going to go?
well, I think, well, first of all, so if Biden does show up, I think they're going to have his medication just right to where both guys will be able to talk over each other the whole entire time.
Right. Well, and it's at 9 o'clock Eastern time. I mean, how are they going to keep them awake at 9 o'clock at night?
A little extra vitamin this, a little extra vitamin that. And of course, they're, who knows? I mean, if Hunter's there with them, he's probably going to rail a couple lines of cocaine before the thing starts anyway.
Ay, ay, ay. So, how do you think Trump is going to conduct himself tonight?
Well, I mean, same way he always does. Obviously, he'll be more professional, but at the same time, I mean, than he has been in the past. But at the same time, he's already been there. He's up against the guy that was selected over him by the masses of voter fraud, and so now they've gotten to where it's no longer is it the voter fraud cheat. It's obvious the new 20 million people brought into the country have been allowed to vote, or they're being registered to vote, and this is factual. We know this for a fact. We've had Venezuelans reach out to us that have come here seeking asylum, and that's a legitimate claim. Hey, I want to seek asylum. Okay, it's not about whether or not they can or cannot seek asylum. It's about whether or not they're a citizen yet to vote. And oddly enough, I literally just got through talking to a DACA recipient. She came here in 2000. Well, I'm sorry, she was born in 2000. Came across the Rio Grande, and just found out like a year ago that she was a DACA recipient. That she's like, yeah, I crossed the border on my mom's back. Apparently, she had no clue of this. Speaks perfect English, and then she goes to apply for a job that uses E-Verify, and then comes back with a hit. And she's like, yeah, I can't even get a job, and I've got a college degree. And I'm like, what the heck, dude? Are you serious? And I mean, we're talking, like I said, she does speak Spanish, but she speaks perfect English. And that's when she had to go back to her parents and say, hey, I can't get a job because of this reason here. Oh, yes, by the way, little girl. So this is what happened whenever you were 3.
Wow.
Yeah. And she's a Trumper.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
well, and of course she'll be deported, right?
Well, no, exactly.
She's a Trump supporter.
Right. She specifically stated, she said, look, I'm afraid to talk about this. I'm like, well, and mom has the resident alien card and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, well, I mean, what do we do with people like that? It's hey, it's going to be okay. Let's go ahead. And she's like, no, I'm a Trumper. I went to all the Trump trainings. I did this. I did that. She was like, I tried to register to vote and I couldn't. And like, well, that's fun that they wouldn't. And because she went through the Republican side, and I know it's nonpartisan whenever you register to vote, but her stuff got flagged that they wouldn't let her vote. So I'm like, well, that's funny that they're enforcing it on people that are right-wing illegal aliens, but they're not going to enforce it on the ones that are left-wing illegal aliens.
Right. Yeah. And it's the same sort of justice that you see even with American-born Trump supporters or people who've been in the Trump administration, or, there's always a different set of rules for Trump supporters versus liberal Democrat people in the United States committing the same crimes, right?
Right. Yep. And yeah, and that and what's funny is they have, they're related to a politicera in the family. And I mean, we had that conversation all the way through, and I'm like, man, this is just, I wish that we could tell your story without the fear of you being deported. And she physically made the statement. She said she's scared right now. She's like, how do I tell my story, ask for the assistance that's needed? Several attorneys have said, yeah, you've got to ask for forgiveness. And it's like, the girl was 3 years old. And mom and dad physically came over to work. She's like, I know we know the guy, and she knows now the guy that brought her over. He's a very successful businessman. So the people that were trafficking people back in the 90s and 2000s, now they're elite socialites and whatnot. But I mean, they were the ones illegally running people through, and they were doing it so they could make the $10 to $50 to $100 a head back in the day. And
Right.
she's like, yeah, we've got family members that we wanted to get over, and there's no way for them to get over, and then all of a sudden the cartel comes in and they're like, hey, it's only $8,000 through this route or $3,500 through this route, and I'm like, wow. And the immigration attorneys, what do? Oh, they're a $5,000 retainer, and then it's $250 to $300 an hour every time you talk to them or every time they have to think about you. So they send you that bill, and then they keep you on the hook for 10 years. So,
Right.
I mean, who's worse? The cartels that are smuggling people, or the immigration attorneys that aren't doing anything? So they keep flipping so they can make sure they're getting their hourly rate every time they think about you.
And it's funny because there's a bunch of billboards up here in the Phoenix area, for immigration attorneys. And I noticed different times when I've driven over to El Paso and over to Texas that they start getting real heavy along the I-10 as you approach El Paso.
Look,
It's
no, you're correct. And look at how many, where Myra Flores ran down there in the South Texas on the border there. The comment made to her was, "You can't run for office unless you're an attorney." And there, she won that race whenever what's his name stepped out, and of course, I don't think she's got a chance in the dark against Vicente Gonzalez. But at the same time, these cultures are like, yeah, to be a state rep or to be a congressional rep, either or a state senator even, you'd have to be an attorney. I mean, for here in Texas, Ted Cruz, John Cornyn, attorneys. Most of your Congress people, attorneys. Who's the one out of Escobar? She's out of El Paso, so she's an attorney. Her husband, immigration attorney. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but originally immigration attorney. So and then all throughout, Henry Cuellar, Vicente Gonzalez, Monica De La Cruz Hernandez, Republican, not an attorney. But the seat that she was running in, that was Vicente Gonzalez. I'm forgetting who was in 34 that stepped out. Dadgummit. He's actually a nice guy, but a Democrat. But he was an attorney, went to being a lobbyist, and there was rumors that he was going to come back. But because he actually took care of his people, that's why Brownsville, went more Democrat than they used to be. Who is it? Again, all through Houston, those guys, a lot of those guys, attorneys. And that's what we know there. California, attorneys. Everyone's running, and at the end of the day, what does an attorney do? Overcharge you for everything, postpone everything, and make you barter everything.
And what do they get done in Congress? Nothing.
Well, Congress, period, just gets nothing done.
But I mean, the attorneys are oftentimes the stickler points in bills and things that want to get through, because their brain works completely different than yours and mine does.
Well, no, they exactly. They think all legalistic and I know the Constitution. I sat with a Democrat a couple of days ago, a state rep, and would you believe the words that came out of his mouth? This is a Democrat, by the way. And he says, well, we have a democracy within our constitutional republic. And I was like, wait a minute, what? And he says, yeah. He goes, we are a republic. And I'm just kind of going, wait a minute, you're a Democrat. You're physically not allowed to say that. I don't care what kind of JD you've got hanging on your wall right there. He kind of laughed. He goes, well, no, he goes, people that they want to mix up words. And then he goes, in the courtroom, we'll talk about democracy all day long. But at the end of the day, he goes, we've physically got a constitution. And I'm just, my jaw's on the, well, not really. He's a decent Democrat. So that's the good part. But he's a conservative Democrat. And I've got friends in the New Mexico legislature. I've got them in the Texas. I've got them in the national side that, they're Democrats because there's no good Republican organization within their area. So if they want to stay in office, and mind you, for me to be sitting in front of a Democrat, we've got to be talking about something serious. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, so we're physically getting the right thing done. And he's like, man, he goes, hey, can we? And we're well, who else do we know that can help us with writing this bill, getting this bill, doing whatever? He's on the phone, his cell phone, calling people. I'm on my phone texting people, and he's like, hey, you know, so and so. I was like, yeah, I just texted him. Why? He's like, yeah, he was telling me that he was just getting a text message from this guy on the border. I'm like, oh, well, that'd be me. So anyway, you know, think about things, you know, jumping into, you know, Zoom calls with these people, and all of a sudden I'm looking, I'm going, wow, so my party talks trash about him, and him, yet he's right here to having this conversation. And then at the same time, though, his party is talking trash about him, and him or her, and
Yeah.
hello.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And you know, in today's political landscape, I think that there probably are some logical Democrats who don't agree with the open borders and don't agree with a lot of the things that the Biden administration is doing. But because of their political label, they have a you know a guideline that they have to go by, and they can't step out of that, because then that democratic machine is going to do everything against them and within their will to get them out of the office, to get somebody in there who's going to follow the rules. So it's sad that we can't have more of these conversations, that it has turned into something like it has, to where we're like poison to each other. And I'm sure the founding fathers didn't expect it to turn out like this, to where, you know, there would be two opposing parties that tie things up and don't ever let progression and progress happen, as it should have been doing for decades now. I mean, it's absolutely sickening when you think of all of the issues that have been held up in Congress because of, you know, two adults fighting with each other and not being able to see eye to eye, and you know, it's like a child having a temper tantrum in a grocery store.
right. Well, and I look at you know, here in Texas, we and this is the fun part for me. People don't like this little piece of reality, this little nugget of reality. You know, we censured Tony Gonzalez. He's our left wing Republican. Blah blah blah. This all, you know, all the stuff you can throw at him. I wasn't a fan either. And then also Dave Phelan, and I laughed because it was the Republican Party of Texas that censored these guys, but never enforced the censure properly. And I'm like, you guys realize, and I've talked to Tony Gonzalez since then. Hey, you know, congratulations on this. I was pushing for the opponent, but I mean, I'm in a position where, you know, he's now the forgiven Republican. I mean, he is the guy on the list. So, you know, you got to suck it up and drive on, because the party failed. And then the party's going, I can't believe you got back in. And I get to look at that person and say, because you didn't follow the rules that your constituency voted on. You know, 9,000 delegates come together in Texas and they say, hey, this is what we want to have happen. And yet you and 62 other people do not enforce it correctly. And I mean, once it happened, it happened. Hey, great. But if you don't enforce it, and then the people they want to, you know, they want to put up against these folks, you know, Tony Gonzalez, Brandon Herrera came out of nowhere. So people weren't really comfortable with him, although he's the one who got into the runoff. And I wasn't comfortable with him. And then after meeting him, I'm like, holy crud, this dude's legit, even though he just moved into Texas. And I mean, you could tell he physically didn't know the background of the area, the makeup of the area all the way. But and the better part was, when I met him, he was 27, 28 years old. So which is what he is now. I think he's 28 now. But anyway, you know, we had some good people running in that race. Victor Avila, he was running in that race, but yet he was running from Dallas. So, you know, how can you be 300 miles outside of your district, and in some cases 700 miles outside of your district, while you're getting on Zoom calls and whatnot? You got to physically be there.
Right.
We had another guy that was running he just had a good Christian guy, but he just had a negative way of doing it, and people didn't like that. And then you had we had another one who just you know, I'm just like, what are you doing up on stage? You're not discussing anything outside of ranching next to San Antonio, and you're talking. You know, everybody was, oh, we got to close the border, we got to do this, we got to do that. Okay, how? And how are you going to bring a Democrat over? You know, and that's the sad part. You know, Sandra, she's got
that race that she was in, they brought in a grifter that Hispanic girl that didn't even speak Spanish. And what did those people? What did the Republicans do there? They specifically said, "We're going to vote for Henry Cuellar," and they did. And, I mean, we're talking Republicans telling you we're going to vote for Henry Cuellar. Now you see he's been indicted and all this. My
Right.
prediction is this new grifter they've got in there is going to lose his election, and Henry Cuellar, even if you put him behind bars, is going to get reelected because the people are comfortable with the person that's down there meeting with them. And I'm. It's not that I'm a huge fan of Henry Cuellar's or anything, but I have a respect for how he deals with his district now.
So he's not. Is he out even campaigning?
No, well, so he is to a certain extent. I mean, he's got to watch what he's saying and doing on the campaign trail because he has been arrested and he has posted a bond. And I can say that, but I can tell you right now, the people will reelect him. I mean, and here's his number one talking point. You guys want a president that just got tied down to 34 felonies or whatever they were? Well, here I am, a congressman with 1 or 2 or 3.
Did you ever think you'd see the day that was the conversation being had?
Right. Well, and if you look at it, you got all these people who are like, hey, we want Donald Trump back. I'm voting for a felon this time around. And you physically have felons who have gotten their voter rights back. And they're like, he's got a mugshot. I'm going for him. And so you don't think that's not going to work for the Democrats?
Yeah.
Bam, we got, what's that guy's name? George
Santos.
And I physically met that dude at CPAC. I mean, I have his phone number the whole bit. And during that whole debacle, I was sending him text messages, and he was responding to him because I wasn't being a jerk, like, ha, this is what you get. But it was like, hey, this is if you're gonna change the subject to talk about something that people want to talk about. And now look at him. So he's this criminal grifter congressman, is what they want to call him, but yet he's on every talk show you can think of. And what was he before? He was, I'm this ultra conservative, I'm this, I'm that. The dude was a drag queen in Brazil half the time.
Right.
I think I could say drag queen on the network. So anyway, I mean, no, they've got him in the little tutu outfit and the long hair and hi, my name is whatever my name was, and he put on a suit and talked about good godly values, and it was just like, hey, and that was a Republican, and they're the ones who pushed him.
Right.
So of course they're the ones who pushed him out the door too, but at the same time, they waited till after he was elected. And what did we do with that seat? We got a conservative Democrat in that seat now. Okay, great.
But let me ask you this. Do you think that these types of things go on where they push these kind of candidates and get behind them and support them financially so that they're in there, so that when there's heat for some other issue, they're going to turn the direction to that guy and let him be ousted from Congress because it's going to take the heat and the attention off of something else that's going on, right?
Yeah. Yep.
There's always these kind of victims, that these political victims that are just collateral damage because they don't even really care about them to begin with. But they got to have these types of people around them because they're good to throw the attention off of the, so much is going on. They're in Texas, here in Arizona, nationally. I mean, it's insane.
No, exactly. And what's funny is, we've, again, Texas Republicans, it's one of those, hey, we got to keep Texas red. Let's get that Hispanic guy over there. So they get a politically, on the outside, hey, this is guy's a former mayor, a couple terms, the whole bit. And he's a Hispanic name. He's from the area. Let's start pouring money into him. So across the state, people are pouring money into this guy because of his name, because of where he's from, and because of what he's done in the past, not realizing that the Republicans in his own district, in this one town, I'm not going to specify his name because I have to support him, but the Republicans in his own district voted for a drag queen. I kid you not, got him out of office. And then when it came time for him to run for one state office endorsed by the governor, he physically got less votes in his own district than the guy currently sitting in that seat for which he ran. Now he's running for a different position. Everyone's going, oh, look at this guy. He's a conservative. I'm like, so that guy had more footage, police cam footage, from the DUI stops that he had as a city councilman and stuff from 20 years ago. I'm like, that stuff is reared its ugly head. And we physically had Republicans say, I'm voting for the guy that doesn't have a shirt on right now, that's wearing a tutu and high heels. And they voted that guy into office. He physically showed up in Hillary Clinton pantsuits with high heels on. I'm talking 6-inch stilettos. This is a dude who was elected to office. I believe it was 2 terms. Yeah, I think he served 2 terms. And then when it came for, Biden even wouldn't even take that guy seriously. But yet Republicans voted for that dude in high heels over the one that they're supporting, that's being supported now, because these folks don't talk to each other. It's literally that one talking head in Austin, Texas, or in DC, or in your case, your capital city. And those are the people deciding who to make look good, who to do the buy-in ads for. They get these young and pretty people that look good on the conservative front, but then you go through their social media history, and they were freaking swingers in college wearing bikinis everywhere. So it's one of those things. The lobbyists, they know who they want to pick so they can own, as opposed to the ones, well, like you and I'm not running for office, but I mean, people like you and me, they don't want us sitting at the table doing serious stuff, because it's going to hurt their agenda, where their lobby money comes from. You and I are aligned on the water issues and on the border, but yet it's easier for us to get money from the casino conversations and stuff. And I know y'all have casinos there in Phoenix, but in Arizona, but that's the big conversation right now here in Texas. And so we've got the casino lobby, the anti-casino lobby, and I'm going, that's pretty comical, because I'm on the border and I've actually had to go inside because the closest place to eat was the casino. And Texans are like, we don't have casinos in Texas, in the Houston, Dallas area. I'm like, yes, you do. It doesn't, people are just such morons these days. They don't pay attention to things. And anyway, we just had our big convention, the Republican Party convention in Texas, and there was so much BS that went with the voting for the platform and all this kind of stuff, that it's everyone's been asking questions, especially the Democrats. And then I almost went to it, but I physically watched the Democrat Party of Texas in El Paso when they met a couple weeks back, like 3 weeks ago. And I watched them. They were performing ballot security and things that the Republicans weren't performing. And then the Republicans were performing parliamentary procedures that the Democrats weren't performing. And so I'm like, I sat in one, I watched another, and I could have picked good parts of the Democrat convention, put them with the Republican convention, the state that is, and we would have had, bottom line, we would have had the best party you've ever seen had these guys were following the rules, and these guys had all the good talking points, but they were cheating the system. So here we are. What are we supposed to do with that?
So did you guys pick your delegates to go to the RNC at your convention?
We did, and even that was there was so much stuff going out. Hey, Donald Trump endorsed this person. Okay, well, show me the endorsement. Well, no, here's an endorsed list, and blah blah blah. We've got this. I'm going, yeah. So when did Donald Trump ever say those people's names? And people are like, oh, I've got this list. It's all these people. I'm like, is that a true list? And remember, I saw 3 lists. So I'm like, how come Donald Trump endorsed him in this one, but somebody else in this one, and then you have this other one? And again, those are the Republicans. So when we sit there and we say, oh, the Democrats are just cheating, they're lying, they're doing this, I'm like, well, did y'all go to the Republican Party of Texas convention too?
Yeah. Well, and the thing about Trump's endorsement is, you're so worried about that. Are you out door knocking and meeting face to face with your constituents? Because that's what's going to make the difference.
Let me give you that one. I'm gonna name this one by name. So I'm the SREC, the State Republican Executive Committeeman now for Senate District 19. So I won over the guy that used to do it way back when, that was brought back in because the last guy dropped out. And the last guy that dropped out, his name was Fernando Garcia. So in Texas, you cannot be on the state Republican executive committee if you're on the ballot for anything countywide and above. So he had to back out. He backed out in September is whenever he left because he was going to run for county commissioner in Valverde County, which is Del Rio. Heavy Democrat county. So it's on the border. It's where all the Haitians came and Venezuelans came across that
okay.
stuck down in the Eagle Pass. So those two cities are right next to each other. So Fernando runs for county commissioner of precinct 3, and heavy, like I said, heavy Democrat district. But he runs as a Republican because it's a conservative Democrat district. So runs as a Republican, gets into a runoff with a known Democrat that brought over several Democrat voters to vote in the Republican primary. He actually won. Now, did he go to the state party convention? No. Why not? He says, Walter, I've got to knock on doors. He overwhelmingly whipped this dude's butt, who spent 15 to 20,000 on a county commissioner race. This guy had 2,500. And because he was knocking on doors and eyeball to eyeball talking to people, he overwhelmingly won against a guy that was running all of the, and mind you, Del Rio, I think, is 35,000 or 36,000 people. So it's not a very large town compared to what you and I are used to. But they had all the billboard ads going on. They had handing tacos for free away in the barrios and all that kind of stuff. And they were doing the meet and greets at everyone's homes to bring more people in. While this guy was knocking on the doors, I mean, and we're talking, he knocked on thousands of doors. Yeah. And it showed. And he said, he goes, Walt, he goes, I knocked on those doors. He goes, I'm not, and he's going to be, when he will be, he's the only one on the ballot that they couldn't get another Democrat to run against this Democrat. So it was a Republican only primary. And there's no Democrat opponent. So he just needs one vote in the fall, and he'll get it, obviously, as long as he votes for himself. And then he'll become the county commissioner. He'll be sworn in on January 1st or whenever they're gonna have their ceremony. He'll be sworn in on that. That being said, because he put the shoe leather down. We have all, Sandra and I helped a guy get elected in his primary, which led up to most of the runoff stuff. And that guy would never leave his home. He would go to Republican Party events only. And all he could ever talk about was China, black limousines coming to get him, or black Suburbans coming to get him because the government's after him. He's a veteran, all this other kind of crap. And everyone was like, that's not gonna win the race, and wouldn't listen to anything, wouldn't talk to anybody, and wouldn't knock on any doors. And then yet he has people come in and later on now, and we're gonna get you on this news cycle here, news cycle there. Yeah, that's a guy that doesn't know how to speak to the population that could be voting for him.
Right.
So
and that's what we're finding here in Arizona is, there are some lobbyists that are going against, like Rob Scantlebury, who's running for Senate here in LD9, 27-year veteran of the police force. The Arizona Association of Police Officers just endorsed, are you ready for this? The incumbent Democrat, who is a nurse. She's never even been a police officer. Arizona Association of Realtors. I've been a realtor for 42 years. They just endorsed the 32-year-old non-experienced non-realtor who's running alongside me for the 2 seats, but they didn't even endorse their fellow 42-year veteran realtor. And
is this the chick in the bikini? Yes. Okay.
Had the conversation with the lobbyist who runs both the Arizona Association of Police and the Association of Realtors. And, they're coming up with all these, what was your survey? No, I looked at the survey, Tom. I'm 100% in line with the Arizona Association of Realtors. Well, it was your in-person interview. No, we never had an in-person interview. They never called me. Oh, well, it must be, that article from back when you were running for office in 2022. Okay, the hit piece on me. All right, yeah. They're going for these moderate Republican candidates is what the lobbyists want. And what just recently happened with our convention here in Arizona and the grassroots movement, the door knocking, the face-to-face with people and having these conversations is making a difference. But the grassroots grassroots people who are involved in the precinct and the state committeemen and all that stuff, they did a big move to put these 6 delegates in to go to the convention who are Trump supporters 100%. And it was an upheaval at the convention because these 6 elites who would turn on Trump on a dime were trying to challenge why these 6 grassroots people were put in and making up all kinds of lies about them. And we have prevailed. And so this is where the Democrats are going to get a slap across their face. Who was a guy yesterday in the New York primary who got voted out? He's part of the squad. What was his name?
Oh,
Who did that little deal with AOC over the weekend?
oh,
That-
you mean the little deal over with AOC over the weekend about how bad things are and how we've got to take our country back, but yet she's been in charge of how many times? I mean, the Democrats are in charge of the country, period. You can't say anything else. The Democrats are in charge of the country. Nothing.
Yeah.
I don't care if Mike Johnson's the speaker, because nothing gets done without the approval of the Senate. And I remember AOC, she was talking about immigration. So she was talking about how Trump made the Republicans go against McConnell. Trump has got nothing to do with anybody in office right now. I mean, yeah, he has phone conversations. They say Trump, 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 all that kind of stuff. That's great. That's the talking points.
It has nothing to do with policy.
Well, yeah, but here's the kicker. Why isn't AOC out there dancing and screaming Joe Biden's name? How come nobody is holding up a set of adult diapers saying, "Hey, we've got to reelect him"? Because basically the guy's he's the guy with a stinky diaper on right now. Nobody wants to talk about him. You know, the funny thing is, I walked into this conversation with a couple. I walked into a meeting with a couple of Democrats that has turned into a couple of other meetings and Zoom meetings and stuff. And the first thing mentioned was that they said something, and I did the qualify. I said, "Look, you know, I'm a Trump supporter, and I know where we're going to sell now. So let's not talk about that. Let's talk about this issue right here." And guess what we did? We had a perfect Texas conversation. We had a perfect American conversation. We left politics out of it because we talked about the people and a problem at hand. There was no talking points. And since then, I've gone on. I've looked at these people. I've looked at all their little pictures on Facebook when they were at the Democratic convention in El Paso, stuff like that. And I'm like, You know what's funny is right now both sides are fuming and fighting over personalities up at the top. And do you know how much money is being made by the PR off of that right there?
Oh, yeah.
Not on the PR of, hey, guess what? We actually do have Democrats that didn't fly to D.C. whenever they walked out on election integrity and they walked out on stuff on the border. And they went the Democrats in Texas, whenever the state house left, and those people should have been jailed. They should have been arrested. There was a group of Democrats that stayed behind. I think it was 2020 to 2022 timeframe. There was a group of Democrats that stayed behind because they needed to work. And the best part is they physically said, you know what? The Democrat Party has done nothing for us. I'm like, well, why are you running? Well, because it's all we've got. And it's in the areas where the Republican Party refuses to go. And I'm sitting there going, well, that's pretty comical that here I am, a state party. I'm not even an elected state rep or state senator or anything. I'm the guy that's supposed to be walking in with a Trump banner going, ooh, you know, and all the funny stuff. We're walking in actually talking about state legislative and state senatorial stuff that needs to happen. And I'm one of the most partisan people, one of the most right-wing people they're going to meet. And yet we are having a civil conversation that, I mean, and I know for a fact I'm going to get, excoriated by my party people when I go back to our SRC meeting in August. We're going to have our first meeting. I'm going to go there to the state thing, and they're going to say, why were you being seen with Democrats? Well, that's easy. I have a state rep that I can meet with that's a Democrat, and the problem is y'all are too weak to put a Republican in there. Y'all are too weak to message on the border. That's your biggest talking point. Y'all scream about it everywhere else, but yet y'all refuse to come here for more than a photo op. Alan West did a great job having people come to Laredo back in 2021. We had the first meeting Laredo ever had down there. The Democrat, the nonpartisan, but the Democrat mayor, because he votes in the Democrat elections, he came out, he addressed the whole entire Republican Party delegation of the state of Texas. He addressed everybody right there in the room. Thank you for coming to our city. Meanwhile, we had a bunch of far right-wing grifters that were sitting down on the river having a Save the Children rally, and talking about crap that they had no clue what they were talking about. But these are the first people that they're going to grab a phone, they're going to grab a thing and say, look, the Venezuelan army is being trained inside this tent in Eagle Pass, which was never the case. And they're talking about space lasers and all kind of crap. I'm like, where are these people coming from? Because that's not what's going on the border right now. And yeah, Alan West has he brought the party down to Laredo, and since that time frame, we have seen the former chairman go down there once. That we know of. He may have been to El Paso, so I don't know about that. But there was not a care given to anyone on the border, and yet the border is the only, in 2020, the border was the only one in Texas that had one county, the Zapata County, with no Republican Party flipped for Donald Trump in 2020. Oh, it's a small county, it's not going to matter. That used to be one of the capital fishing spots in the whole world to go to with Falcon Lake, which is now about 9 feet deep. It used to be about 60 feet deep, but it's about 9 feet deep. It's shared on the border with Mexico. Democrats, the Democrat sheriff, the guy that got elected Democrat sheriff, was campaigning for Donald Trump in 2020. And he won his Democrat primary, and the whole entire time he had Trump stickers on his trucks. And whenever he won his election in November, because there was no Republican in there, he was campaigning for Donald Trump. There was no Republican Party in Zapata. So you had Sheriff Del Bosque, you had Jenny Thatcher, you had those people, and she became the party chairwoman. And she's not like any Republican they've ever met. But yet we've had Monica de la Cruz Hernandez, we've had Myra Flores, we've had all these Republicans go up there and preach about what they did in D.C. Look at Zapata, look at Zapata. Those people never were in that county. They had talking points because they don't physically go and talk to the people. And whereas you're sitting there, I know you're knocking on doors, I know you're doing things. Hey, you know what? Let the lobbyists screw you over, because whenever they get when they get that chick that looks good in a bikini to go in there talking, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to get her elected. That's why the whole purpose for having them in there is because they want the Democrat to win your seat. That's exactly what they want. And they need you out of the way because you're too conservative. And the funny thing about you being too conservative is you physically know how to turn off the political conversation and talk to the person.
Right.
It's funny it's funny you're related, and I know this. You're related. It's Lorena Austin. You're related in relation to her parents and to her family. Y'all have physically been to parties together. You've been to each other's home type stuff, and they would welcome you as their grandparent or as the grandparent of that girl. They would welcome you into their home.
Right.
Like if you walked in right now, they would open the door for you because that's the kind of people they are.
Her father would.
Yeah. Because you're not pushing. I mean, yeah, you have a right-wing agenda, but there's a time to turn the agenda on, and there's a time to be a person.
Right.
The politicians in office right now don't know how to. Some of them don't know how to do that. I'm physically proud of the conservative Democrats we've got, and when I say, hey, what would it take to get you to come over to the party? They're like, your party's got nothing to offer for me. I get reelected, and it's not. I get reelected, and we're going to have Joe Biden in there. They're not talking about Democrat talking points. Oh, we're going to be able to put abortion back up on this, and that. They're not discussing that stuff. They're physically saying, I need to have more water in the tap of my residents here that they don't have to boil. I need for people to be able to not worry about illegal aliens coming across, and they say illegal aliens coming across the river and harming my people. Holy crap! Well, you know what? If I would have gone in there with a microphone and just and recorded the thing and videoed the thing, the whole bit, you guys would have thought that I was sitting with a bunch of Republicans.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and I was out yesterday door knocking, and I'm door knocking right now on disengaged voters' doors and trying to get them to re-engage. And two conversations that I had, and they were both middle-aged men and registered Republicans. And the one guy said, I'm just so sick of politics. And I said, well, I get it. And, there's going to be a societal breakdown here. I'm predicting in 6 months, one guy said. There's no way that we can continue the way that we're going. And I said, I get that, but I said, I need you. I need your vote because I want to make a difference here in our legislative district. And we talked about the representation that we have now, Lorena Austin and Seth Blattman, Democrats that are just awful. And I went into some of the issues that they support. And I said, so you see why I need your vote, why I need you to step up and go and to the voting polls on election day and make sure that your voice is heard, because you can't sit back any longer. You've sat out 2 presidential elections. You can't do that anymore. And then feel like you have a right to complain about it. You've got to, and so anyway, by the time I left that guy's house, it was only about 15 minutes. He wanted the address of where our legislative district meetings are because he wants to get back involved. So same thing with another guy. Wasn't as in depth with the other guy, but 26, wasn't really interested. He's a neighbor of mine. He lives close by, and that kind of impressed him too. That I just lived the next street over. Gave him my address and said, I need your vote. And believe it or not, Walter, that is working with people. When I have a connection with them, and then I said,
Yep.
I need you to go to the polling. I need you to vote for me. I need you. I need your vote. And Trump needs your vote. Even if you don't want to worry about everybody else, get to the polls and vote for the 2 of us. It's powerful.
Yep.
It's powerful having that connection and having those conversations and listening. But the hardest thing that a lot of politicians and candidates have is to be able to say to the people, what is the most important issue that's bothering you right now? And just stop and listen to what they have to say. Because most politicians and candidates go to the door and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, and this is what I stand for. This, and this. Can I count on your vote? Have you really cared about that constituent and what's bothering them? Because maybe 2 of those 5 issues bother them, but they have 18 other ones that bother them more than the other 3. So,
You're actually perfect with what you're saying, because remember, so I'm a Republican Party official. I'm the Senate District 19 representative of the state of Texas. I'm the state Republican Executive Committee for that area on the Republican ticket, for the party, not the elected in Austin. The one in office right now is a Democrat. So whenever I go there with our priorities, that all these that I'm looking at the numbers between 7,000 and 9,000 people voted on. So Texas is the largest Republican Party delegation in the world. Blah blah blah, all this kind of stuff. The priorities we have for legislative priorities in Texas that the party wants, that the actual grassroots people, the 7,000 and 9,000 people that are the voice of the party. Obviously, we've got 30 million people that live here, but the 7,000 and 9,000 people that go and waste their money every 2 years on the convention to fight politically for what they want. The voters in my district, they don't know this. They don't hear this. I watched the Democrats in El Paso physically throw their platform away because they didn't have a quorum anymore. Because halfway through their convention, people said, it's more important for me to get back home than to vote on my the legislative priorities and what we want to represent here in Texas. It's more important for me to get back to the other side of the state than for me to be here. And they did that specifically because the last time they had a convention, it was the same thing. There was always an excuse that the Democrat higher ups in the party, that their state chairman, all that, it was always an excuse to not finish the work of the people. And here we are, the Republican Party, finishing the work of the people, but yet nobody's voicing that. They were shocked at the conversation that we were having as I'm showing them my party platform. They're like, that's our stuff too. I'm like, wow. But yet I can't get people beyond the text messaging phase. I can't get people, and I say that I can't. We have great party leaderships in Texas. The Texas Federation of Republican Women has always been a cuss word over on the other side of the state that I grew up on, because those are the moderate Republicans, blah blah blah, whatever. Well, those are the only people doing the work on the border. And so now I got people saying, well, Walt's a moderate. I'm like, actually, I'm not a moderate, because I'm knocking on doors. And when these doors are 2 and 3 miles apart, yeah, I step out of the truck, I go knock on a door, and I walk back, 100 feet away, and I walk back in, and I have to drive for 2 miles. So mine doesn't just take shoe leather. Now you're talking, I'm burning petrochemicals in my tank, out of my tank through the exhaust pipe, because people live 2 and 3 miles, or they live 16 miles down the road.
Yeah.
That's how block walking goes on the border. And then when it comes time to talk to the people that are in the barrios in the border that totally agree with us, the churches, the this, the that, the fact that now they're, the whole, everyone's fighting the drag queen story hour stuff that's indoctrinating and dealing with the stuff with the children in the big cities. Nobody ever thought about the fact that this is going on in Eagle Pass. We have city council members that if you Google their names in Eagle Pass right now, there are, on Google, there are fully nude porno pics from where they used to be porn stars in California that are the ones advocating for children as elected officials in Eagle Pass in Maverick County, Texas. And then we have Uvalde, we have drag queen story hour that's at a swingers bar that happens to be in the same location. And when I say swingers bar, it's a TABC approved, so they can serve liquor. They're a restaurant. They are fully licensed. And would you believe what the business is in the same building? Well, it's actually a home that's been converted to a business and a restaurant and bar in a neighborhood. It's a child pediatrician.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And here's the worst part of it. So
Oh my gosh.
the former idiot Republican Party chairwoman that got knocked out, thank God, what does she do? She gets on Facebook and says, hey, look, what are the churches going to do about this? And she blasts it everywhere. And so what do? They say, hey, look, the Christians are coming after our lifestyle. And so the Republican knucklehead in charge sold 200 tickets for those people. It's a bar that opens at 7 o'clock p.m. on a Friday and closes sometime in the afternoon on Sunday. It's a full-blown, they don't serve alcohol past this time unless you're a club member, and they know all the laws to get around. But you got people flying from New York City to Uvalde, Texas, home of one of the worst school massacres we've seen. That's the kind of crap Republicans are doing whenever it's like, hey, you want to know why the Uvalde is such a hot point on gun control and everything else? Because you're picking the wrong topics and you're not talking to the people you need to be talking to. And mind you, this is the former Republican Party chairman of that county. Thank God we've got a group of people that can actually talk to the constituents, that can actually talk to the people, that know how to not burn down a bridge every time they open their mouth. And keep in mind who is on your screen right now as I'm telling you this. I mean, I have learned that, you can't sit there and scream at the Democrats and blame them for everything and expect them to open their doors when you knock on that door. So
Right.
it's you've got to, we have to find out. We don't have to worry about sending thousands of text messages, the crap emails and all that stuff that come from the party. And, oh, hey, it's only 42 cents or it's only 42 cents for the first 100 text messages you send out. You think people actually click on that crap? I mean, and there's some people that do. We're scaring all the old people. They're finally getting into text messaging. But at the end of the day, we're not physically talking to the right people. And so whenever you have one person that wants to message to 10,000 people at one time, and you get out of the whole having 10 people messaging to 100, do you see the ratio that's going on there? Now you've got 10 people in front of 10 people. So you got one person in front of 10 people, but yet you have your little chic college kid out there. Hey, I can access 10,000 people at the same time through the internet. That's great. It doesn't beat the guy that knocked on your door like you just did with those two guys that you met at that ice house that you engaged with because you said, vote for me. I need you. And this is why I need you, because you need me.
Right. And one thing I talked about Tuesday, I had Jerome Davison, who's running for Congress here on my show. And we were talking about, you can be a Trump supporter, but you can also support candidates that he does not endorse.
Yeah.
You can go against an endorsement locally because we know better than anybody what's going on in our communities. We know the candidates. I've been to some, meet and greets and LD meetings and stuff where I've seen the same candidate 4 or 5 times, and it's a different take every time I see them. And I was speaking on this mainly because of the whole Kari Lake endorsement by Trump here in Arizona, because, I'm 100% a Mark Lamb supporter. for the Senate seat here in Arizona. And Walter, last night they had a clean elections debate, and there's some other unknown Republican, I guess, running too that I had never heard of. But Kerry Lake wouldn't show up to the debate, and so it was just Mark Lamb all by himself for 30 minutes. And it was the best thing that ever could have happened to him, because he was really able to get down into the issues and have a conversation with the people and not have any interruptions and, sideshow going on.
So it's funny you mentioned that, because you and Mark Lamb are the two Arizonans that I financially support, and I know Mark. I've met him several times over the year. I can call him right now, and if he doesn't answer the phone right away, he'll call me back within 3 or 4 hours. So and not that I need to be doing that, because he needs to be answering the phone of the voters. But I watched that debate the online debate between him and Kerry Lake. And then I dug into it, and I'm looking at the fact that, Donald Trump has got Kerry Lake on there, and Kerry Lake, you got to admit, they got a great campaign by getting Donald Trump's endorsement, by always putting him, always going to Mar-a-Lago. And what's he going to do? Whenever she spends big time donor money to go to Mar-a-Lago, yeah, she's going to get the former president of the United States that owns the place, to come out and say, hey people, hey everything. So it gives the bigger discussion there. But the fact that she can't even address, and Mark Lamb, oh, he's the sheriff. What's he going to talk about? He's going to talk about fentanyl. He's going to talk about the border. No, that debate with Kerry Lake, where I'm telling you right now, that was golden. There was so much I watched on it. She called him a coward. So she basically called law enforcement a coward. And then she went on to how he didn't do anything for election integrity in his county for her. Whenever she won his county, I mean, how stupid does Kerry Lake think these voters are, by all these talking points? And I got people in Houston, Texas that called and said, can you believe this guy did this? I'm like, this guy didn't do a thing, what she said, because she didn't lose in his district. He secured her elections. He did the right thing for her. And she was one of the ones that prompted him to run. My question I asked those people, where is Kerry Lake on the governor fight? Why isn't she staying in the position that she ran for as the loser that probably did get cheated out of her election? You want to know why people aren't fighting for her? Because of the rhetoric, the verbiage, the look at her. I mean, Sandra calls her what's that, Gosar from Ghostbusters. She looks like the Sigourney Weaver, up there with the blue eyes and the gatekeeper and all that kind of crap. It's the funniest thing, the funniest visual you look at. It's like a little demon, but they look at her talking. It was great when she was running for governor, and then she was talking about election integrity, and over half the stuff she was talking about, she had no clue about. It's talking points from somebody else. And then you have Mark Lamb, who, he's a cop, he's a sheriff, he's going to talk about fentanyl, he's going to talk about the border. That dude pumps out into the economy. I mean, he's been elected 3 times now by Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah.
Democrats don't want Kerry Lake as their governor. There's no chance for her to win.
Yeah.
Mark
Lamb, listen,
Mark Lamb, and you specifically, both of y'all know how to talk to both sides. You know how to have a platform that you represent, but then you know how to also be diversified in the context of everything, where the lobbyists aren't going to be running you like what they want to do with Kerry Lake.
Right. And that whole, little sideshow she did, calling Mark Lamb a coward. What I find so interesting is, as a candidate for governor, she was always calling out the mainstream media. Well, as a former media person, you know exactly what the media was going to do with your comment about him being a coward, knowing that it wasn't the truth. You knew they were going to go flying with that story and put the question marks in everybody's mind, because it did, Walter. There's a lot of people questioning. He did nothing for election integrity. Oh my God. And I was watching people who I know very, very well commenting and saying, I'm never voting for him. I can't believe that he didn't do this and that. And I'm like, whoa, wait a second. And I started privately texting them. But so she uses that media thing because she knows how it's going to work to her benefit, right?
So the question you have to ask yourself now is, so you give her a 6-year term in the Senate, and what kind of senator are you going to have? Oh, I can tell you, you're going to have a younger female version of John Cornyn.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that I worry about is that, look, and I love Kerry Lake as a person. I don't have an issue with her. But she's the one who encouraged Mark Lamb to run for this Senate position. And then when she realized she wasn't going to be the VP pick, she decides to jump into something because what else was she going to do? She was so hyped up politically. But I think her ego is going to get in the way. And I think her, mega personality, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it in a way that she's going to act like she's better than everybody else because she's under Trump's wing, all that happened. She's going to be focused on too many things other than why she's really there. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, remember, Trump is out of office because the grifters that were within his organization. And that's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. But the Republicans screwed Donald Trump more than the Democrats did.
Yeah.
And that shows at the start of his at the start of his presidency, when we had Paul Ryan, when we had the congressional House, we had the senatorial part of the House, and then we had the perfect trifecta. Nothing got done. It's the same back when Bush won, and we had the perfect trifecta back then. The Republicans did nothing. Now let's make the trifecta with the Democrats. What have they done? Holy crap! Look at what they've done. I mean, gallon of milk is over $8. Gasoline is through the roof. Diesel's through the roof. Now we're finding out, oh, wait a second, all these solar farms we're building, if they get hit by hail or anything, now we've just polluted that whole entire field and the local drinking water. So, we're seeing too much negative from the success of the Democrats, but then we're seeing no positive of the negatives of the Republican Party. I know it sounds redundant, but yeah. Paul Ryan, we had those guys there. They totally screwed Trump in the first 2 years. And by the time 2018 rolled around for the re-election timeframe, that's when we lost the House to Nancy Pelosi, because we disenfranchised Republican voters and they were able to swindle Democrat voters. We literally could have had 2019, 2020 would have been a total different direction.
Yeah. Well, and back in 2019, maybe it was 2020 before the election. I was invited back east to St. Louis it wasn't St. Louis. It was back on the East Coast. Anyway, for a CNN town hall with Paul Ryan as an angel mom. And I was fresh to all of this, fighting for Brandon and stuff. But this was my first introduction to the scamminess or the wretched stench of a bad Republican. So you've got Paul Ryan up there, and I tell Brandon's story, and I'm asking a question, how are you going to support Trump when he gets elected into office, and about the border issues and stuff. And he gave his, nicey nice response to me. The very next person who stood up to ask a question was a dreamer, a DACA participant. And he professed how he was going to protect her. And, oh my gosh, I'm so happy you're here. And I'm so happy that you're going to have a great life. And I'm sitting there. I wanted to stand up, Walter, and just scream at him, some bad words. Because it's like, how do you support a grieving American mother whose son was killed by an illegal, but then say you're going to be supporting the dreamers and the DACA participants who, as we all know, first of all, it was illegal what Obama did. And second of all, there's like over 83,000 criminals within the DACA program who are allowed to stay here in the country. So for him to be voicing his support for DACA participants, he knows nothing about this girl. Other than she's standing up saying, I'm a DACA participant. I was brought here illegally as a child, and I want to stay here. He doesn't know her criminal background. He doesn't know anything. And that was really a gut punch to me when I realized we can't even count on Republicans to stand up and do the right thing in an elected position. And unless you really get to know that candidate or that person who's running for office, we can't afford to sit out this election time. We can't afford not to be showing up at your legislative district meetings. You can't afford not to go and listen to the candidates speak. You can't count on Trump endorsements. You can't count on former governor endorsements. You can't count on anything other than your own gut feeling about what you know is good for you and your family and the candidate who you're going to vote and support.
Yep. No, totally. And if that's the hard thing with me. Like I told you, I was with the DACA kid this morning, and I literally, I look at whenever I talk to people like that, I've got Marianne Mendoza and I've got Cayenne Michael sitting in the back of my head the whole entire time. So it's like, how can I be humane to you? Because yeah, what happened to you as a kid is one thing. What have you done since the time that you came here? Oh well, we were told to hang out in the throngs of the darkness, because eventually we'll be able to come out of the shadows. I don't want someone who's going to wait in the shadows for other people to act. I want people to come out of those shadows. Sandra had this kid that had to stay in the shadows because it's illegal for illegal aliens to be involved. I'm sorry, it's illegal for immigrants to be involved in campaigns, and this was a legal immigrant. And I went to his, and he's not the most total right-wing guy, but he's a great Christian guy. We love him to death. Osvaldo, he's been on the show a couple times before, but he got his citizenship. And I'll never forget, I went to his citizenship ceremony in Laredo at the federal courthouse, and it's right after the pandemic and all the scamdemic and all the crap that went on. And we had to walk across the street that had defund the wall painted on it to get into the federal courthouse. And we went there. He's got a suit on. I've got my suit on. We're taking selfies. We're going out to eat later, the whole bit. And at that time also, it was like, hey, his parents were proud of him. And they lived just across the border. They had businesses on both sides. They were good folks. He was physically a student of Henry Cuellar at the college. So, and he was verbally against what Henry Cuellar was preaching as a Democrat. So that was the even funnier part. And this kid told me, he said, I'm now a citizen. He goes, I can openly campaign. I can openly do this. I don't have to hide in the shadows doing these things. And when he hid in the shadows, he wasn't hiding. He was gathering people saying, hey, this is what's going on. Y'all need to see it. And he happened to be the first. He jumped out of the shadow into the light, got his citizenship, and his whole, I'll never forget, one of the attorneys that was there says, well, so what are you going to do now? He said, I'm going to go to law school because I want to be a federal court judge that can swear in a legal immigrant into this country to become a citizen, and let them see what can actually happen if you don't listen to all the negatives and you perform. And this guy went from, hey, I'm in law school, to this, to that, to what kind of job do you think he had? You think he'd be a lobbyist? You think he'd be on staff of some politician in their office or something there, because he's the perfect story of that. No, he physically went and became a waiter so that he could talk to more people that are hiding in the shadows.
Wow.
Now he's working towards law school. Yes, he does have his degree. I think, he's got his master's degree now. So he is going into law school, but he's putting himself through law school as a waiter, because now he's able to tell more people and I'm talking, this isn't a taqueria. This is not in one of the nice highfalutin places that you would say, oh, that kid belongs there. No, he's physically in some little, crap shack taco place that he's physically able to talk to people. He's getting tips from them, but at the same time, he's able to talk about the U.S. Constitution, U.S. history, where, wait a minute. So you're illegal right now? Did you know here's how you could do things the right way? Did you know this is how you could participate? This, how you could undo it? Because people that are here illegally, these DACA recipients, they're not happy at all by what they've seen over the past 4 years. They're not happy of the past 3 years. They're not happy at all with the fact that 20 million people just jumped in front of the line in front of them. Right. And it was like, hey, we were told we could come here. And I'm sorry those people are lied to. But unless you get out and fight for the fact that, yeah, your place in line is up there. However, if you're going to sit here and take it, and keep in mind, some of these people they've got their resident alien cards, they've got this, they've got visas, they've got green cards, so they're physically working. And I'm like, and like the girl today, I said, you realize you're paying taxes, right? She says, yes, I'm paying taxes. And she said, I've got a status that I'm in. I said, okay, that's great. You realize that everyone that's in front of you in line right now, you're paying for them to be in front of you in line.
Yeah.
You have to step out and say, I was in line first. This is not about your this is not about the fact that your former governor, you're a refugee, your former government is working against you and you're here asking for asylum, because I was brought here And I tell them that, I'm like, you were an asylum seeker back then. It may have been a different time. The cartels were bad back in 2000. And who started all that? Oh, our drug people. Your son, Brandon, was a sergeant with Mesa. He was killed. Why was he killed? An illegal alien killed him that was doing something stupid. What was Brandon's number one fix? He was getting drugs out of the park. He was one of the people that was boots on the ground, getting people out of that park that were using, so that the community could start getting back into being able to use that park for the kids that wanted to use that park, as opposed to the drug addicts, the needles that were on the ground, all that kind of stuff. And how did he do it? He didn't sit there and wait for some big federal program to fund him on things. I've already read on how Brandon, your son, did things. He knocked on doors. Hey, do your kids want to come out and play? They named the park after him because of what he did. And the problem is we don't have enough Brandons and he didn't sacrifice his life over there. His life was taken because somebody did not sacrifice themselves to make sure that idiot that hit him was taken off the street. The fact that the fact that you had a car chase that never should have happened at the time that it happened, that's why we lost him. His life was taken, period. You've been living this thing. But we have that going on all over the place. And yet politicians, or the elected officials, don't want to talk to those people. And whenever I physically go talk to Democrats who, if they met you in person, would have the conversation, I'm telling you right now, the ones here in Texas, there's a huge group of them that nobody's tapping into. And so they're finding their own way to say, well, I'm not with Biden here. And I'm telling you right now, there are Democrats that are embarrassed that their diaper wearing president is the one above them. They do not discuss it. And as you saw with AOC, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched how she talked about, we got to take our country back. You're in charge, you stupid idiot. I mean, those people are up there. Yeah, we're doing this. And she was dancing all around the place. I saw it, how she looked like an idiot that was on crack. That was, and it's great that she's a congressperson, wonderful. Glad you got in there. But the fact that
she tries too hard.
It's a theater. That's all it is for these people. And so even with Karen Lake, hey, she's a very well-versed media person that knows how to use the media, but yet she goes in and disrespects Mark Lamb and folks like yourself. And you say, hey, she's a great person. I'm going to counteract on that, because if she can't be a great person in front of that camera, then she can't be a great person in private either. If you've got two separate lives, and with you and Mark Lamb, I mean, you have a lot of controversy. That's great. So does Mark Lamb. But guess what? Y'all are transparent. And that controversy, the controversy is made by the left in both parties.
Right. Well, and I just want to touch back on the DACA situation. I'm 100% in line with you, where I feel like the DACA participants, the dreamers, they definitely need a go of it. But because of the fact of how quickly it was put into place, and how none of those people were vetted, and how because they're allowed 3 misdemeanors before they're kicked out of the program, where a lot of them have committed felonies, and they've reduced it to a misdemeanor to be able to keep them in the guidelines of this program. I think there needs to be a deep dive into that and get rid of all the criminal element. And I don't care if you've committed a misdemeanor, you need to be out of the program. You're here on a pretty tight, you're walking a tightrope. And why would you be out committing misdemeanors or doing anything foolish like that?
Yep. Well,
so, and then these people need to be given a chance. I have a neighbor, Walter, who's afraid, because he's illegal, but his children were born here, and his one daughter was in the military, and she's already been back. And I think she's now got a medical field employment. But I support them, and I've told him a million times, you should be taken care of before the guy who walks over the border tomorrow. You should be given the opportunity to become a citizen, because you've lived here most of your life. You and your wife have owned businesses. Your daughter's been in the military, and you're good people. You're not looking for government handout. You are the illegals that we should be dealing with front and center. And I've always felt that way, that the people who've been here, all the people that Brandon worked for down in the Guerrero Park area, they've been here for decades. They're good people. Why are we allowing them to step up and make the path easier for them, instead of the Venezuelan gang members who are crossing over the border tomorrow and and we're giving you an asylum pass, and we're going to help you, and we're going to give you, and we're going to provide you with, and what else can we do for you? Please let us help you. I mean, that's how stupid we have become with these people invading our country.
Well, and funny you say that, Venezuela's particularly, a month and a half ago, I know of one illegal alien that crossed over, and I don't know about the other one, but the girl that was videoed, Jocelyn, 12 years old, in Houston, that was videoed, her rape and her death was videoed on their cell phone.
Yeah.
And you've got Democrats over there, and thank God that the idiots in Houston were able to elect John Whitmire, the former Democrat state senator, to become their mayor, because he was out there with the Houston Police Department. He was out there with all those people. And at the end of the day, you have to put this squarely on the federal agents that are abiding by the illegal orders of the Biden administration. And I'm talking for the chief's office on down. And nobody wants to talk about that, because you have a lot of really good agents, and they are being kept busy in other places, so they don't get to see. I mean, they're not an active participant in what's going on illegally, but higher up in the chief's position, and some of the sector chiefs positions, those guys know that they are enforcing policies that are illegal. And the number one thing as a service member that has had to lay people to rest, that has had, I've still got a pair of boots about once or twice a month. I'll put them on and go walking in them, because they've got someone else's blood on them. And I mean, they haven't been washed since. You can see the stains. It was the newer, lighter color shoes, but it's my military issue. And by the way, the ones that I got charged with, that I had to pay for, even though the military said, here's your issue, they turned around and hit me with a $3,000 bill when I left the military and said, oh, you got to pay for all your uniforms. Yeah, people don't tell you that kind of stuff. But we had to follow the rules in the military. And if somebody had an illegal order and you did not question it and you followed it, you could wind up in jail. I want to know why our chief of the Border Patrol right now has been partying with millionaire Mexican millionaires that are a part of a trafficking ring, and yet he never felt that he had to report it. Now he's under investigation. And what are we hearing? If you go look on Twitter right now, about 2 or 3 times a day, his Twitter feed is, oh, this agent here, INS busted it, or I call him INS still. The ICE busted this guy over here. We just took guns off the street over in Miami. The stuff he's reporting, he shouldn't be reporting any of it, because it never should be happening.
Right.
And it's like, hey, you have all these joint service media, what do they call them? The press conferences where everyone's all together, and it's the mayor gets to talk, then the sheriff gets to talk, then the chief gets to talk. Oh, then the local FBI rep gets to talk, and then this guy from DHS gets to talk, and the guy from Customs gets to talk. We shouldn't be having those press conferences. We shouldn't be having people that don't like each other, that know that the guy next to them is ineffective, having to sit up on the stage and put on a united front because the victim deserves it.
Right.
At the end of the day, the victims, that is our number. Unfortunately, the victims is the number one priority we should be going through. And the number one priority should be that we are not creating more victims. And this administration and parts of the Trump administration have created this problem, because the people with Trump didn't take it serious. Now he's got a serious group in there. So yes, that's a part of the fault there. They let things happen. And then we have this administration right here, which doubled down on the dirty, and bam, yeah. We are beyond invaded. We are beyond. I'm hoping. I'm down on the state level now. I'm glad that finally our governor has decided to not just close the border. That shuts down our economy too. But they're closing down the parts of the border that need to be closed down, instead of doing this ceremonial. Oh, there's no trade going on, so how do you like that? Well, my small businesses in Texas are hurting also, and the fact that Eagle Pass finally has got trade. You can drive in downtown now. There's restaurants that are no longer just lunch and just breakfast. There's restaurants that are staying open a little bit later now, because they know that, as the businesses and the courthouse comes in to eat, now they know that people are coming from out of town, because there's actual travel going on there, and it's not cops that are occupying every freaking hotel room.
Right. We have gone 25 minutes past my time. But I always have such a good time
2
talking.
hours, but Sandra's got, so thank God she's been off, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me, Walter. I always
Love
enjoy
you,
having
girl,
a
and
conversation with you. And
I-
people enjoy watching you. I get good comments from people when you're on the show. So anyway,
well,
I hope you have a great weekend.
I appreciate you. We will see you.
All right. Talk to
All
you soon.
All right, bye.
All right, everybody. We are signing off. It's Thursday. We went 25 minutes past our time, but it's always good having a conversation with Walter West from Texas. And I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will see you again next Tuesday.